You're listening to the Contextually Speaking podcast. I am your host, Art Wallace. To vax or not to vax? That is the question. Let's get into it. When referring to the jab, we need to be very careful about calling it a vaccine. We need to call it exactly what it is, an experimental drug. Two reasons for that. First of all, I want you to notice that they changed the definition of what a vaccine is to accommodate this drug. So, by calling it an experimental drug, we're actually being technically correct. But it goes beyond just being technically correct. If you call it a vaccine, there are cultural, social, and psychological ramifications that you have to deal with. Listen, in a debate, whoever gets to determine the rules of engagement, whoever gets to determine how the game is being played, and or who gets to define the meaning and the definition of the words being used, that person gains an insurmountable tactical advantage. For example, the pro-abortion versus the anti-abortion argument. The minute that those who support abortion couched it as a pro-choice argument, they had gained the moral high ground. The minute they made it about the right to choose as opposed to what's being chosen, they had already won. Listen, the power of choice is an inalienable right. It is a gift from the Most High and Eternal God. The power of choice, the right to choose, is man's greatest superpower. The right and the ability to choose is man's greatest superpower, especially if you are someone who owns their choice. When you exercise the power of choice, you enter into one of two fields. You either enter into the field of consequences and repercussions because you made a poor choice, or you enter into the field of blessing. And those blessings are manifested in the form of options. The wiser the choice that you make, the more empowering it is. The wiser the choice you make, the better the options you have. I've talked about in a previous podcast how when God designed the world, he designed it to function and operate in a certain way. And one of those ways is by wisdom. That wisdom is a key component in living a fruitful and productive life. We can tell why someone is by the choices that they make. Again, but I digress. So when you call it a vaccine, you are setting yourself up for failure. When you call it a vaccine, you are ascribing and bestowing upon that drug attributes and qualities that it does not have. You are placing it into a category that it does not belong in. You are putting it right alongside the polio vaccine, for example. And you'll notice when you oppose it, the first thing that they like to say is that, well, you've taken other vaccines, and they will specifically mention the polio vaccine. You've taken the polio vaccine. So when you do that, It's like taking on friendly fire when you call it a vaccine. Secondly, and more importantly, even if you win that particular debate by calling it a vaccine, it has cultural, social, and psychological impact upon those who are listening, even if they're not directly engaged in the debate itself. Because all they'll hear is that you are someone who opposes life saving vaccines and medicine. That's all they will hear. So, again, it's like setting yourself up for friendly fire. It's called operant conditioning because they continue to hear vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. And that's how they will hear that. That's how they will see this experimental drug. They won't see it as the fact that we are the experiment. All right. Thank you for listening. Peace.